Burned out? Maybe you should care less about your job. Hello and welcome to another edition of Shine 365, where our job is to help you lead a better life. Today we'll do a review of the article by the Wall Street Journal, Burned Out? Maybe You Should Care Less About Your Job by Rachel Feinzag. Work and life boundaries are gone. Meetings are multiplying. And many say work has taken over their lives during the pandemic. Here's how to gain perspective and to take back control. When Jonathan Frostek realized he was having a heart attack in April, sitting at his desk on a Sunday prepping for the work week, he thought about his wife and his will. He also thought, I needed to meet with my manager tomorrow, and this is not convenient. Imagine that, a heart attack not being convenient. Well, it's never convenient, but if you're having a heart attack, you probably shouldn't be thinking about work. The 45-year-old financial services worker survived the heart attack, and it changed his life. The non-negotiables on his calendar now are thrice weekly swims and dropping his youngest son off at a nursery school. In his fewer hours on the job, he says he's calm, he's decisive, and he's above the fray. When he has too much on his plate, he leaves the work for another day. I've been stressed once since the heart attack, he says. It's like this switch now. It doesn't matter. But back then, I was my work, he says. And he's not alone. So many of us are defined by the work we do. I had an incident a long time ago that had me change the way I thought of things. At that time, and that was over decades now, I worked for a very large company. And during a big meeting in which there was hundreds of people and thousands of people watching on the internet, one of the presenters started to have a heart attack. But instead of getting off the stage, he stayed on that stage to finish his presentation. An ambulance was called, there was an emergency medics on the side waiting, but he wouldn't get off that stage even though he was having a heart attack because he was afraid he would lose his job and his work was more important than his heart attack. What's more important, your work or your life? Well, I'd like to say, if you're not living, you obviously can't work. And if your work doesn't value you highly enough that it lets you off the stage to go to the hospital when you're having a heart attack, then maybe you shouldn't be working for that company. Jonathan goes on to say, we put in too many hours, we don't take vacation, we can't say no to that 6 a.m. conference call, and underneath it all is something bigger, an emotional attachment to our jobs that just exhausts us and squeezes out all the other parts of our identities. For years, we were told to find meaning and purpose at work, while our other parts of modern life, like church, receded. And then came the pandemic. And things changed again because people understood that, wait, life is about more than work. Life is about more than your job. Should you do a good job? Yes. You always want to do your best. But life is not only work, and work is not life. The pandemic brought about a big change in how people thought about work and life. Work has become our lives. We sat down at our computers in the spring of 2020 and we haven't let up since. Now we can't figure out how to turn it off because when people are working from home, the office is at their home. So if they're open to phone calls, if they're open to texts, if they're open to emails, then they could be going 24/7. Even in the middle of the night, if you're dealing with different time zones, a call or a text or email could come in any time. The question is, can we learn to care less? And why would you want to care less about your job? Your job is important, but if it's stressing you out and it's destroying your health, it's time to care a little bit less. Ideally, without having a brush with death. What happens if we just let go a little? Not much, assures Sarah Knight, who ran her own experiment. After suffering a panic attack in her Manhattan office, she decided to pull back from the perfectionist tendencies that had propelled her to senior editor in the publishing industry. She stopped taking business lunches. She left the office by 6 p.m. She traded her blazers and high heels for Gap corduroys and tennis shoes. And what happened? No one seemed to care. I was like, could I have been doing that this whole time, she says? separation from work and home life breaks recharge you. There's studies done in nations that overwork their employees. The productivity goes way down. Employees may be working lots of hours, but their productivity is going down. Whereas if you work a reasonable amount of hours, your productivity will go up. Sarah Knight, she left the corporate world. She moved to the Dominican Republic and she wrote a book. The book's called The Life-Changing Magic of Not Giving a F***. Do I really have to work every night until 7 or 8 p.m.? Do I really have to have my lunch sitting at the computer working? Sometimes the answer is yes. Business lunches might be crucial to continuing to earn a paycheck, but something else probably isn't. As much as a quarter of the stuff you've taken on over the years may be unnecessary. Let those things go, she says. Just let it go, walk away, and live a better life. Have a better work-life balance. When you're at work, do your absolute best that you can do. When you're away from work, don't take your work with you. Nearly 90% of workers said they've experienced burnout over the past year. That is a huge amount of burnout. 90% of workers have experienced burnout. We need to do something about this. Companies can fail if their employees are not productive. If their employees are burnt out, they can't do their job effectively. So something has to change. Some companies say they care. There are some firms that have tried to combat burnout while with listening sessions, extra days off. But many employees say they end up wedging work in anyway because they have to get a certain amount of work done. But remember, and this is the key, there is a vibrant life outside of work. You might find that taking some time off for yourself ends up making you being better at your job. With less on your plate and more perspective, every task will stop feeling like a fire drill, and then you can focus on what matters and you can do it correctly. Now, I'm not saying in the least that you shouldn't try hard at your work, that you shouldn't be the best person you can absolutely be. You should care about your job. Everyone needs a work-life balance, and your work is not your end-all be-all. I hope you learned something from this podcast. If you did, please give us a thumbs up. Please like and subscribe, and as always, we'll see you next time on Shine 365.